Hi, I'm Chris Martinson of Peak Prosperity. It's Friday, June 15, 2018. Here's your update for the week. Wow, you know, the longer this goes on, the more is despair too strong of a word? Here's the thing. Whenever I add up all the data in this story, whether it's the amount of debt that's in the system for the economic E, or it's just how fast we're drilling into the last remaining source rocks in the United States. We call it the shale oil miracle. It's really a Ponzi scheme. They've lost $280 billion. And that's the right word, Wall Street Journal. The shale industry has lost $280 billion. I know you like to say that they spent $280 billion more than they earned from operations, but that's a clumsy phrase. We can edit that down into a simple word: loss. Or it's in the environmental side where, okay, confession time. I pull data whenever I have to give a talk, and so I was just down giving a talk at a symposium on the future of work. Really super interesting place to go. One of my favorite blue sky conferences to attend, where it's just a very small number of people and think out of the box. Very, very well moderated. It's done by the people at the Institute for Human and Machine Cognition, Pensacola, Florida. People who are there, Google employee in the low hundreds is, because I don't want to identify anybody who doesn't want to be identified. Somebody there from the SETI Institute looking for, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The former tour manager of such acts as Led Zeppelin, Robin Williams, a really cool guy. Just a really cool cast of people, and a bunch of people who are there with deep experience in the field of work. Just an absolutely brilliant young University of Florida student. So really diverse crowd. And I got to deliver a context-setting talk. So I do what I do. I say, here's the economy. That's the filter we all want to look through. And if we're talking about work, I guess we're going to, talk about the economy for sure. But guess what? It's this exponential thing. Because we have an exponential money system, it has to constantly grow. Let's check out what we mean when we say it's going to grow forever. You need energy to grow. Remember, the economy is a subset of energy, which is a subset of natural resources. So at least as it's currently configured. Hey, maybe Area 51's got some free energy, but here's what we know. 80% of our energy is fossil fuels. We're eating those fossil fuels literally and figuratively. And then there's some nuclear and some hydro, and then there's this little tiny smear of other stuff that we're trying to do. But those are derivatives of those earlier ones. Nobody has yet made a solar panel or a wind turbine without using a lot of fossil fuels at every step of the process. So here's exactly how many alternative energy systems have been created with only inputs from an alternative energy system. Ready? There you go. So at any rate, I gave him that part of the talk. But then when I get to the ecological part, and I was just pulling data that just showed up this past week. And so as the Federal Reserve is busy, here's what's happening economically right now. Argentina's peso is literally falling apart at this point in time. We have enormous difficulties in Europe. Angela Merkel maybe is, going to get, lose her coalition and have to resign. Europe could be fracturing at this point in time. And what happens in the United States markets? They just magically float up again, while gold and silver and other commodities get crushed. It's how we roll here in the USSA when it comes to markets, at any rate, markets. So, but just this past week, what did I find? Baobab trees, which are 2,000 years old in some cases, these giant trees in Africa with a circumference the size of a house, they're mysteriously dying. And there's no good explanation for that. So that's little red warning light 1 on the dashboard of our ecology dashboard. There it is, red warning light. And we might want to go, stop. What's happening? We need to understand this. Red warning light number 2 is all the stuff that's happening in the context of the Pacific Ocean, with 99% of turtles now are being born female in the Pacific area. And why is that? Well, turtles have a little on-off switch that they can flick, where if they're under a particular stress, they will default to females because, hey, good strategy, right? All you need is like one dude. But if you have more females, those are where life comes from, is from your female stock. So turtles have a way of saying we're stressed. So the baobab trees in Africa, the turtles in the South Pacific, looking at the insect collapse numbers, just absolutely extraordinary. Looking at the data on macrofauna and lions, tigers, bears, giraffes, all that just like plummeting like crazy. The fish stocks all across the world down an incredible amount in the last 10 years, but that's from a baseline that had already been lowered down. So when I add all of that up, you can clearly see the end of the growth story. We're not going to double from here. China's not going to get twice as big, United States twice as big, but every single narrative we have in the United States and in China and across the world is around this idea that we're just going to keep doubling. We're going to get twice as big. And so at the Future of Work conference, I was the guy to sort of drop that bomb, the happy bomb. What am I going to do? This is who I am. I am that guy, I don't get invited to as many parties because I'm always trying to bring this reality injection in, I guess. I do get invited to parties. But, I feel like what I'm doing is bringing a really hard message to people who don't want to hear it. But boy, we need to hear it. There's here where I live on a river in rural Massachusetts. I've seen 0 mayflies this year. I've seen 1 stonefly, and I've seen 1 caddisfly. I would normally, by this time of the year in mid-June, the hatches have already happened. You know why they're called mayflies? Because of the month of May. That's when they happen. The hatch season's over, and at least for some of the biggest ones, the olive duns and these big hatches of mayflies. And it didn't happen. You know why? Because they're not there. How are they not there? You know what? Neonicotinoid pesticides or whatever else we're doing. It's just this incredible narrative where we've wiped out the bottom of the food chain. Bad idea, right? Krill on the way out in Antarctica because we humans are now harvesting those with trawlers. Again, harvesting the bottom of the food pyramid is a bad idea. Repeat after me. It's a bad idea. And we all know that on some level. And I'm the guy that reminds people that we know that. So that's my job. And it was my distinct honor to both be able to influence and be influenced by these extraordinary people talking about the future of work. I'm going to be writing that up, and it's going to go out on my website pretty soon. So if you want to find out more about that, and it was held at the IHMC Center in Pensacola, Florida, which is where they make those really extraordinary robots. Super amazing people they're building. Some of the most extraordinary, working on the AI, the programming, the software side, plus the hardware to make those robots that you've seen maybe on the internet lately. So kind of cool. It was fun. And I'll just let you know that to hear firsthand stories about Robin Williams and about Keith Moon, just extraordinary. So that was fun too. So I had a good time. My brain got rocked, and every time I add the data back up, I even scare myself a little bit. And so pay no attention to the markets. Please start to pay attention to what's actually happening out in the real world. Feel it in your heart what's actually happening, and know that you're on the right path for remaining aware, understanding that the future is going to be very different from the past, and that we're all in this together. So with that, hey, I'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.